The Capitol rioters attacked police, but why isn't the Fraternal Order of Police even outraged by it? On Tuesday, the National Fraternal Order of Police decided to clear up any confusion about its position on the January 6th assault on the Capitol riot on the Capitol by the enraged Donald Trump sycophants. Those who participated in the assaults, the looting, and trespassing must be arrested and held to account. We continue to offer our support, gratitude, and love to our brothers and sisters in law enforcement who successfully fought off the rioters, and we will be with them as they grieve and recover, however long that may fucking take. Um, the Fraternal Order of Police does not often have to clarify its position on matters of public concern. The organization is usually rather strident in expressing its views. For example, back in 2016, the Fraternal Order of Police demanded that Walmart cease selling the Black Lives Matters T-shirt. It denounced Nike for its ad campaign involving Colin Kaepernick, who was purged from the NFL for protesting police misconduct. But if you go to the Fraternal Order of Police's own Twitter feed, you can find a steady stream of clips from conservative outlets such as the fake news channels Newsmax and FO, showing the Fraternal Order of Police representatives attacking policies like bail reform, slamming the Democratic elected officials, and blaming the black rights activists for the recent rise in homicides. And these posts are interspersed with tributes to the homicide victims, attacking the rogue prosecutors, the activist judge, and progressive policies for their deaths. The local Fraternal Order Police chapters, meanwhile, are also not exactly known for being demure. The former head of the Houston Fraternal Order Police, who's now the vice president of the National Fraternal Order Police, had dismissed a woman and a disabled Navy veteran who were killed in a botched drug raid by officers seeking heroin as dirtbags. No heroin was found. The Miami Fraternal Order of Police boycotted the Beyonce concert, charging that she had used her Super Bowl halftime show in 2016 to divide Americans by promoting the Black Panthers. In Chicago, the local Fraternal Order of Police president defended the rioters who stormed the Capitol. You're not going to convince me that many people voted for Joe Biden, which they did, which technically more people voted for Joe Biden, no matter how many sycophants that bounce up and down on Donald's dick even want to believe that they didn't. Never for the rest of my life will you ever convince me of that. Actually, I'm convinced of it. And what you won't find on the National Fraternal Order of Police Twitter feed, however, are condemnations of the Capitol rioters who attacked police officers on January 6th, deploying this sort of unrestrained bombast. You won't find any clips of the Fraternal Order of Police members on faux news confronting its primetime host for mocking the testimony of police officers who faced the mob that day. You won't even find the Fraternal Order of Police highlighting the compelling testimony of those officers whose recollections paint a vivid picture of the rioters and their motives. You will find only the Fraternal Order of Police careful statement seeking to clear up any confusion about its position, a deeply unusual situation for the Fraternal Order of Police to be in. Officer Harry Dunn, who was black, testified that he was called the N-word by rioters who were infuriated that he had mentioned voting for Joe Biden. The sergeant, Aquilino Gonell, an Army veteran, and I'm not sure if I'm saying that name right, but anyway, he was an Army veteran and immigrant, testified that he was called a traitor and said, "For the first time, I was more afraid to work at the Capitol than during my entire Army deployment to Iraq." And by contrast, D.C. Metropolitan Police Officer Daniel Hodges, who was white and who could be seen on video bloodied and being crushed by rioters, said that some of them tried to recruit him, with one asking, "Are you my brother?" The catalyst for the Capitol riot was the fact that Trump, the sitting squatter of the United States, had engaged in a months-long propaganda campaign to convince his sycophants that Biden had been illegitimately elected, which he wasn't, and indulged a series of harebrained the schemes to cling to power even after being defeated, including pressuring Republican legislators to avoid the results in their states, imposing on the Justice Department to declare the results fraudulent, which they weren't, and demanding the Supreme Court declare him winner by fiat, and telling state election officials to find fraudulent votes as pretext for him to contest the outcome, which backfired on him, because basically they weren't going to declare him the winner when he rightfully lost. And they weren't going to find any fraudulent votes because there wasn't any. But it's difficult to comprehend without grasping how Trump and the sycophants understand the role of the police. Before the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the outlawed formal segregation police in Jim Crow states enforced the color line. So even when the law didn't explicitly mandate discrimination, police were tacitly, if not explicitly, expected to enforce the de facto color line by local and state political leadership. I feel just as strongly about what has happened to law and order in this country as does George Wallace, Richard Nixon told an interviewer while running for president back in '68. The laws have changed, but many Americans have never abandoned the belief that police are obligated to enforce the America's racial hierarchies. The role of the American policing, in their view, is less to uphold the law than to act as a kind of sectarian militia for the real Americans, which is to say Trumpist Republicans. Trump encouraged police to abuse the people of color, but when he and those around him came under investigation, he turned his anger onto law enforcement. As Chris Hayes wrote back in 2018, if a young black man grabs a white woman by the crotch, he's a thug and deserves to be roughed up by police officers. But if Donald Trump grabs a white woman by the crotch in a nightclub, as he's been accused of doing multiple times and he denies it, it's locker room talk. On January 6, Hodges testified a rioter shouted, "Do not attack us, we're not Black Lives Matter," as if political affiliation is how we determine when to use force. Well, yes, it's exactly what they fucking think. The officers at the Capitol who fulfilled their oath by protecting lawmakers from a mob, in a thrall to a dangerous fantasy that they could change the outcome of the 2020 election through violence, are now being attacked as traitors. And to my perpetual confusion, Hodges testified, I saw the thin blue line flag, a symbol of support for law enforcement, more than once, being carried by the terrorists as they ignored our commands and continued to assault us. One Trump sycophant accused of assaulting police officers during the riot was photographed that day wearing a patch with the symbol of the murderous Marvel Comics vigilante, the Punisher, decorated with the colors of the thin blue line flag. The apparent discrepancy is simple to explain. The officers were seen as treasonous by the rioters because they were supposed to join the mob in overthrowing the constitutional order and casting down the Democratic usurpers, as well as the illegitimate multiracial coalition that brought Democrats to power. They viewed the officers holding to their vow to defend the Constitution as betraying their true obligations, as Trump and the mob understood them, because the right hold the police in such high regard. The Fraternal Order of Police is uniquely positioned to disabuse the conservatards of the idea that the rioters were heroic or that the riot itself was carried out by Democrats, which it wasn't, and any other manner of conspiracy theories deployed to obfuscate what happened on January 6th. The organization is ideally suited to pressure the Republican lawmakers to support the commission examining the incident and to criticize those who seek to turn out that process into a circus or rewrite the events of that day. The Union could use its stature to attack the legitimacy of the right-wing political violence and to reject the harmful notion that the role of American police is to act as a partisan militia rather to impartially enforce the law. The Fraternal Order of Police has chosen instead to remain meekly silent on the Capitol riot, in effect reserving harsher language for protesters against the police brutality than for a mob that brutalized police. And when asked by CNN's Jake Tapper why the Fraternal Order of Police was not more forcefully defending the Capitol Police officers, the FOP President Patrick Yose offered a tame paraphrase of the group's press release and insisted that he had not seen Faux News host maligning these officers as emotionally weak cowards on the network that he and his subordinates frequently appear on for the friendly interviews. The Fraternal Order of Police did not respond to a detailed list of queries from the Atlantic. The Fraternal Order of Police has many reasons to remain quiet. Much of its rank-and-file membership is strongly supportive of Squatter Trump, one the organization endorsed and worked to elect in 2016 and 2020. Big mistake on their part. The Fraternal Order of Police leaders also know that some off-duty officers were in the mob and might not want to suggest that they should be fired or prosecuted, and they probably also do not want to antagonize the right-wing voters who will reflexively support their members as long as any police abuses are aimed at the communities those voters hate and fear. All of these reasons, however, are a tremendous indictment of the police unions in general and the Fraternal Order of Police in particular. The group has placed its interests ahead of the needs of the public, from whom the police derived their authority, and ahead of its sworn brothers and sisters in Washington, who drew the wrath of political constituency that the police unions would prefer not to antagonize. If a commitment to law and order does not include support for the peaceful and democratic transition of power, it is fucking meaningless. The officers who defended the Capitol have noticed the Fraternal Order of Police's relative silence, but the officer Michael Fanone, who was also testified this week, told CNN that he spoke with Yose. I asked him to publicly denounce any active duty, a retired law enforcement officer that participated in an insurrection of the Capitol on January 6th, and in doing so betrayed their oath of honor for Benone Zeb, and Yosi added would not commit to doing so. Perhaps the nation's largest police union simply does not see trying to overthrow an election in the name of the squatter Donald Trump as a betrayal, but a commitment to democracy is not a position that an organization representing armed agents of the state should ever have to clarify, and that it did so only through gritted teeth gives the public little reason to trust its sincerity. So if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel RBW King, and also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out.